Welcome to the May 26th, 2022 electronic meeting of the Environmental Commission. This meeting is in accordance with executive orders from the governor to effect social distancing and mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099, which are both toll-free numbers, and enter meeting ID number 915-8343-9176. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city's website and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. All one word. All right. Thank you, everybody. I call this meeting to order at 7:02. Galen, do you want to read the land heritage statement and then go with the roll call?
Sure. Okay. The land heritage statement. I acknowledge that the land the city of Ann Arbor occupies is the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, including Ottawa, Ojibwe, and Bodewodmi and Wyandotte peoples. I further acknowledge that our city stands like almost all property in the United States on lands obtained generally in unconscionable ways from indigenous peoples. The taking of this land was formalized by the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. Knowing where we live, work, study, and recreate does not change the past, but a thorough understanding of the ongoing consequences of this past can empower us in our work to create a future that supports human flourishing and justice for all individuals. And that is the land heritage statement.
Thank you, Galen.
Okay, I'm letting Kathy Griswold in. And Edie is saying, she just sent me an email. And I'm gonna let her in. Just 1 second, please.
Oh, sure.
Edie. Okay, she says she's having trouble signing in to the meeting. Okay, I'm sending her this link. But you want me to move ahead or wait a second?
Let's see. Why don't we wait just a minute?
Yeah, I just sent her the link again.
Okay.
Okay, I sent her the link twice.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead?
You should.
We'll see when she joins us.
Okay, I'm ready for roll call. I just let her in.
Okay, great.
All right, roll call, Commissioner Needham. Commissioner Needham. Councilmember Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Griswold.
Here.
Commissioner Callywart. Commissioner Callywart. Chairperson Brown.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Vice Chairperson Mitchell.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Right, Commissioner Vandenbroek.
Here.
Commissioner Oriole.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Okay, Commissioner Gibb Randall.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Marson. Commissioner Martian. All right. Commissioner Gruber.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Niedrich.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Juno.
Here in Ann Arbor.
All right, we have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you, Galen. So the next item on our agenda is election of 2022 officers. There are two elected positions, chair and vice chair, currently held by myself and Rita Mitchell. Are there any nominations for election of chair for 2022? Oh, I don't want to nominate myself.
I nominate Steve Brown.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Chris Vandenbroek. Let's see. Now, are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, I hear and see none. So let's have a vote. All who agree that Stephen Brown should be the chair for 2022, raise your hand or say
Yes. Aye.
Aye.
aye. Okay. Any nays? Any abstentions? No. Okay. All those who approve Rita Mitchell as continuing as the vice chair for 2022, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? No, I hear and see none. So they both pass unanimously. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Let's see. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Let's see. And let's see. Is it seconded?
I would like to make one small change on
Yes.
the formal agenda. We had an item that was new business on reading of sustainability village. I think that we're not prepared for that, so I would like to formally delete that from our discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rita. Let's see. Is there? So there's been an amendment to delete that item on the agenda. Are there any more suggested amendments? Yeah, I don't hear or see any. So let's see. Do I have a second to approve of the agenda as amended? Okay. Shannon seconds it. So all who approve of the amended agenda, please raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? I don't hear any. No abstentions. So the agenda is approved as amended, striking the under the new business category, reading of sustainability village. So let's move on. The next item is the approval of the minutes. The minutes from our April meeting. Are there any let's see, I have a suggested change. That is just at the very end. It says that the next meeting is going to be June 26th, but it's, or June 23rd, I believe, but it's today, May 26th. So the April minutes should be changed to reflect that. Are there any other suggestions to amend the drafted minutes? Yeah, I hear and see none. So Galen, would you make those changes to the minutes and then submit them? All who approve of the minutes as amended, please raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? I hear and see none, so the minutes are as amended or approved. So the next item on the agenda is public commentary. Well, this is the first of two public comment periods during our regularly scheduled meetings. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes. Please call 1-888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 915-8343-9176. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments, and be patient. There can be a delay of up to 30 seconds before a connection is established. So is there anybody on the line yet, Caitlin?
There's no one currently on the line.
Okay, so we'll wait. We'll wait 30 seconds. Galen, is there anybody on the line as yet?
There's no one on the line.
Okay, then. So this ends the first public commentary period. There will be another at the end of this meeting. So the next item on the agenda is special presentations. The first one who is up is the city forester. Will give us a presentation on the urban tree canopy and how the city manages the trees under its responsibility.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Are we
Hi.
ready?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's get you. Let's see, Tiffany. Let's get you. You can manage the presentation yourself.
Yep, I'll pull that up. I may pause periodically during my presentation. I've been home yesterday and today I have the flu that I got from my children. But I didn't want to push this off for a third time. So I think I should be able to get through and answer your questions.
Would you prefer us to ask questions as you go along or wait till the end?
Either is fine. If you want to, if someone can just interrupt me because I'm going to have my presentation up. Galen, if you just let me know if someone raises their hand, maybe it'd be better to ask while the stuff is on the screen.
Okay, we'll do.
Get my, just see here. Now, sometimes when this presents, and let me know if you're seeing like the next screen that comes and I'll try to rework it.
Yep, it looks good from my phone here.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Tiffany Jacobazzi, the Urban Forestry and Natural Resources Planning Coordinator. I'm an ISA certified arborist and tree risk assessment qualified arborist through ISA. I've been with the city a little over 3 years now. You probably all remember my predecessor, Carrie Gray. So it's been a fun ride since I've been here 3 years ago. and I'm here to talk to you today about just give you an update on our urban forest, since now is the time that we're really looking at comparing our data from our 2020 inventory compared to our 2009 inventory, as well as updating our urban forest management plan. I want to first start out by saying that this was not all created by me. This was not created in a bubble. We have some great consultants working with us on this project. The main one being JV Resource Group. They're the ones that are helping lead this project and pull a lot of data together and doing a lot of research on similar communities of size and scope to Ann Arbor. Smith Group is leading our engagement, all of our engagement activities with this project, and Fair Forest Consulting. We have engaged with them to make sure that everything we do is through a lens of equity and inclusion, and making sure that we are reaching as many people as possible and removing as many barriers as possible through this whole process. And then Urban Ashes, we're working with them on creating a urban wood use program that's going to be piloted here in the city of Ann Arbor, that might actually end up being a hub. So not only Ann Arbor wood coming in, but potentially Washtenaw County, some other things. So we are working with Urban Ashes throughout this whole process on potentially redirecting our wood waste from the waste stream, which is exciting. So we'll start out by taking a look at our 2020 versus our 2009 inventory. And I sent this to you guys ahead of time. I won't read all these numbers out loud, but all our benefits are increasing. Overall, if you add them all together, all the benefit increase and everything, we're about 34.5% higher value than what we were back in 2009. Our replacement value, if we had to replace our urban forest, and I put an asterisk on this, if we had to replace the publicly owned portion of the urban forest. So the street trees and the park trees would be about $92 million if we had to replace that. So it's good news. We're seeing increases, and we're looking at what we can do on the back end to see greater increases next time. My thing is locked up apparently. Okay. So if we take a look at a comparison side by side of our street trees, park trees, stumps, and vacant sites, we see a great reduction in vacant planting sites since 2009. That kind of makes sense because we've been going through and planting 1,000 trees a year. We have more trees, fewer vacant planting sites, which is what we would expect to see. We would expect to see an increase. Do I raised hand?
Yeah. Is the number of planting sites a static number? Can that increase?
That number stayed. You mean from like the first inventory? Have we added like vacant planting sites?
Yeah. I mean, you could potentially say there's a lot of open parkland and that could accept more trees as an example. So I'm just trying to understand if we're talking about the same denominator number of tree planting places.
With the vacant planting sites, those are really strictly for street trees because it's hard to go into the parks and say, okay, well, there's room for trees here when I might not know the use. They might need that space open for whatever recreation purposes. So we don't update like vacant planting sites in parks. It's strictly along the streets. So the 1,000 trees a year, that's what's impacting the vacant planting sites.
Okay, and that could increase along streets?
I'm sorry, what?
Could planting sites increase along streets?
Yeah, we add them, I wouldn't say every day, but when we're out there during our planting cycles, we do add significant number, probably 100, 200 sites every time we plant, because we go into an area and even if there's not a vacant planting site in our inventory, we have our field arborist who's coordinating everything on the ground. He goes through and adds sites where there is room for trees and field verifies.
Great, that's exactly my question. Thank you.
Okay. we also saw a change in the makeup of our size classes, which is good. We had a predominantly heavy medium size class urban forest in 2009. We saw an increase in our large diameter trees as well as our small diameter. So that's good. We're seeing trees in the medium size move into the large, and we're seeing a greater influx of small that will eventually hopefully move into the medium. So we want to see, we wanted to see that. We wanted to see an increase in the other two, and it makes sense that there's a decrease in the medium as they move up into that large size class. So take a look at the top 10 kinds of trees. Predominantly, unsurprisingly, our main top species is maple. That includes Norway, sugar, silver, red. We saw a decrease, 12% decrease in maples, and happily we saw a 33% increase in oaks being planted. We reduced the number of crab apples that we were planting, sycamore, so London plane and sycamore. We saw a 27% increase in that. We saw a great increase in our elms. And then we saw a decrease in the pear. That would be the Callery pear. Now, while we aren't planting any of those, we're starting to see them leave the urban forest. We don't plant any, nor do we allow any to be planted in the right of way. So that you'll continue to see that go down as they're removed. Now to break that down into the species. So Norway maple is still our top species in our urban forest. We saw a reduction by 18%. Sugar maple is down by 27%. We saw, like I said, an increase in the London plains. In our oaks, red specifically, we saw a good increase in that. So these were our top 10. 4 maples make up that large percentage of maple in our urban forest. So we continue to very limitedly plant maple. And then the ones that we do are really by strong resident request. Yes, question? You're muted.
Yeah, Tiffany, it's Steve. First of all, I'm surprised that there are so many elms in the list here because of Dutch elm disease.
Mm-hmm.
Which species of elms are you planting?
We have Princeton, and we have I'm drawing a blank, but we do the Dutch elm resistant varieties is what we're planting. And
are those native trees or?
Yeah, they're a mix, and I don't know exactly what they're a mix of, but yeah, they're a variety of native. Okay. But they're a variety of American, and they're spliced with something else. I can't remember what, but they are resistant to Dutch elm disease.
Ellie Forge.
Thank you.
Great. And I had one other comment, I think, but my understanding is that the state classifies Norway maple as an invasive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Norway maple is invasive.
So do you intend continuing to plant Norways, or will you?
No, we don't plant any. They're on our list that people can't plant them. You can't plant cultivars, like Crimson Kings and stuff. No.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then we're looking at the overall condition of our urban forest. We want to see the overall condition increase, and we did see that. Trees are slow growing, so we wouldn't expect to see like a huge, ginormous jump in the overall condition, but we did see an increase, and we're very happy about that. And then the overall tree condition of our population is fair. And I just wanted to put out there the definition. So when we sent out the arborists from Davie Resource Group to go out and do our inventory, fair condition class means it has minor structural problems or mechanical damage. So if there's some storm damage in the tree, or significant damage from non-fatal disfiguring diseases. So think of tar spot on maple, where it's not exactly great to look at, or the nipple gall on hackberry. Again, it's not great to look at, but it doesn't hinder the tree and what it needs to do really. Minor crown imbalances or thin ground, maybe a little bit of stunted growth compared to some trees nearby, or trees that have been topped. So think of some of the trees that have potentially had some pruning done to them that are somewhat close to utility lines, but they show reasonable vitality and no obvious signs of decay. Yes, go ahead.
Could you just explain the numeric score for the trees for the two?
Yep. So they took the whole condition class and this is a part of the report that Davey sent, and they're updating that. And I plan on forwarding it to you guys as well as the Elizabeth Dean Fund Committee and the Natural Features Committee. Once they get it to me, they're updating it. But that's from the summer report from the 2020 inventory. What they did is they took all of the average score from the first inventory, so the tree health score, and then they took the average score of the 2020 inventory and just divided it by the number of trees, and then this is what you've got. So the average score, the mean has gone up.
Across
I'm not a statistician. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining that well.
No, that's okay. But it's just across all species for one thing, right?
It's across all species, all size classes, everything.
Okay. And so the condition for each tree has its own numeric score based on the definition of the condition.
Good,
right?
fair, poor. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So anyway, fair condition is trees that are doing average. They're doing all right. They're holding their own. They're not in poor condition. Most urban forests, most trees are in fair condition. So Ann Arbor's is not unique that the majority of the trees are in fair condition. The majority of the trees in Grand Rapids, in Lansing, and all the other cities, average condition, the one that has the most trees in it is always fair condition. It's really hard to find an excellent condition tree out there. So we'll take a look at excuse me, the breakdown of the trees. Again, I showed this earlier, but 52% of our trees are in that fair condition, meaning minor structural defects, decent canopy. 31% are in the good condition. And then we had trees in very good. And then we had 9% in poor, 1% in both critical and dead. So we had about 86% of our trees in fair condition or above, which is good. The priority, this just breaks down our maintenance categories. Every tree that is in our inventory is assigned a maintenance category. The majority of them are in large tree routine pruning, which makes sense. We're working our way through our routine pruning cycle. And then the next thing would be the training prune, which again makes sense because we plant 1,000 trees a year. All of those trees, get put in as will need routine pruning. And we don't do that for the first 3 to 4 years of its life, unless there's obvious crossing branches. We do take care of those right away. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Tiffany, it's Steve again. So I noticed that under your column park trees, it's the mowed areas. So does this mean that the area around the tree, completely around the tree, is mowed, and what about the trees that are not in the mowed areas? How do those enter in here?
They don't. The trees that are large and kind of sit forward a little bit and have some mowing around part of it, they're included in the inventory. But any of the trees in the native natural areas, we couldn't inventory those. They're just part of our natural area. They aren't included in this.
Okay. Do you have an estimate of the total tree canopy area in the city, or does your office do that, or?
Not yet. No. I have sat with the Natural Features Committee, and Chris Graham and Rita could probably speak to this more than me, but We did have the C students that are pulling that data together on doing the updating our natural features layer to include turf grass and native forest fragment, canopy cover, and stuff like that.
Right. And when do you expect to have that publicly available, that information?
Rita or Chris, do you know, has our IT folks gotten that data yet? There's supposed to be a data transfer happening between U of M and us, and I don't know that that's taken place.
I don't know it's taking place either, but it's imminent. It will take some time for them to incorporate it. We're hoping they incorporate it not only in your databases, but into the natural features layers on the website.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tiffany.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. There was a question that were sent to me about a breakdown of contracted versus in-house work. So I thought I'd give you a little snapshot into our urban forestry program here. So on staff, we have, excuse me, 10, sometimes 11 folks. There's myself, one urban forestry specialist. We sometimes have one intern working under myself on projects. And then we have 8 full-time employees and 1 supervisor, and they're the ones that handle all of the in-house maintenance, the actual physical maintenance of the trees in our urban forest. Including myself and the full-time staff, we have 6 ISA certified arborists, 2 TRAC, so tree risk assessment qualified arborists, and 1 oak wilt qualified arborist. We handle in-house all of the reactive pruning, storm damage. Resident calls in and says something broke off in the crown, there's a hanger, that kind of stuff. We handle all of that. We handle all of the removals, and we do all of the stump grinding. On a limited basis, there's some tree planting that takes place in-house, and any cabling bracing, we don't do a lot of it. But what we do have done, we do it ourselves. Contracted forestry, I manage all of those excuse me, in-house, all of those contracts for the contracted work that we have done. That includes our routine pruning cycle. That contractor is Davy Tree Care Company, Davy Tree Experts. We also have our annual tree planting. That's right now by Margolis. And then any tree fertilization, we don't do a lot of that either. We reserve that for a very large, what might consider heritage trees. We do contract that out, and that generally goes to Guardian Tree Experts. They're local here to Ann Arbor. Sorry, I tried to mute. I couldn't find my mute button. So how do we use this information? We prioritize removals, prioritize pruning, selection of planting sites, and then diversification of tree species. We take a look at what we have too much of and try not to plant it. We take a look at what we don't have enough of and try to plant it. And then when we get into a community, a neighborhood, we look at what's growing nearby and try to diversify. Yes.
Kathy Griswold, I'm wondering if there are branches that are covering a stop sign or blocking visibility. Is that something that your staff monitors when they're out doing pruning, or is that something that needs to be reported through, say, A2 Fix It, or how would we report that condition?
Yeah, if you find something, it's best to report it. You know, we have 2 crews. So when we have, say we have 8 people, you know, 9 with our maintenance supervisor. Our maintenance supervisor is not out generally doing that work. He's going and responding to service requests. If you see something, please submit a ticket, because there's no guarantee that we'll drive past where an issue is. So we also rely on folks either physically calling in or submitting that ticket.
Oh, okay. When you say a ticket, is that through A2 Fix It?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much. And is there any other staff within the city that monitors for, say, trees that are blocking signage?
I'm sure I get calls from our traffic engineer folks, our traffic engineering team. Yeah.
Mm.
They
Oh.
reach out each year and say, oh, Tiffany, this tree is starting to encroach on this intersection at this stoplight. Could we get it added to the list here to be taken care of?
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So growing the urban forest by the numbers, I took a look at this year's tree plantings, and every year, the program that I manage, the annual street tree planting, we target hitting 50%. We normally hit 60 or more. However, lately we've been finding it problematic to find native trees. This spring, we hit 48.2% native. This is basically coming down to what our nurseries are able to find the supply. And I've talked to Ann Arbor, or not Ann Arbor, Novi, Grand Rapids, and Lansing, and they're all facing the same things. They're having trouble finding certain species. So we've been working with Missy's team to talk about potentially trying to start up a nursery here that the city would own, and that we could control what we put in the ground. And we're in the very early stages of that, but we do try to target that. Our resident street tree planting program is 100% native. That's bare root trees that residents can sign up to plant in front of their home. They do the planting themselves. We assist. Elizabeth Dean Fund this year was 71% native, and the 10,000 Trees Initiative, I reached out to Sean, who manages that program, and they're at 73% native so far. Other questions? I see hands up. You're muted.
Yeah, it's Steve Brown again. There's a public perception that comes up periodically that a lot of the newer trees that are planted, in the adjacent to the streets, die within the first year. So I was wondering if how you monitor, survival 1 year out, 5 years out, things like that, and and how residents can minimize the loss of the recently planted trees.
Yeah. So the first year, a tree is under warranty. So that first year, if the tree dies, the contractor has to come out and replace it. So after that, at that point, we have 100%, like 100% of the trees are alive because they've come and replaced any that have died. I checked 2 years ago, and we had 92% of them were alive. I think 8% of the trees had died in the course of that first year. So 8% of them were replaced. After that, we honestly haven't been able to track. We haven't been able to keep up because we plant so many each year. Forestry staff used to be a lot more. And, when all the budget cuts came back in the day, the levels were never restored. And that is not unique to forestry. The city staff level is not where it traditionally was. And so we haven't been able to adequately get back out there and care for those trees. And that is further in the presentation too, about some of the challenges that we're facing and what we are trying to do to combat some of that. Yes.
Thanks, Tiffany, for this presentation. I'm wondering if there could, I think that, when something is planted in front of my house in the right of way, I tend to think of it as that's the city's responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of invite the homeowner to share in some of the care by just saying like a little door handle thing that goes over and say, you have a new street tree. That, like, you're not obligated to, but would you consider watering it? If it, something just to kind of like invite people, that they're not responsible for it necessarily, but just to kind of let them know, hey, we could use some help here, that maybe there's a way that we could reduce those numbers of survivability or of them dying off. If there could just be something simple, not like getting everybody's email and training and all that kind of business, but just something that's like a simple standard thing that you kind of leave off just to let people know that you are short-staffed and that it's something that would be great if people could step in and support things.
Yeah, right now we have a door hanger. I'm thinking of turning it into a mailer this year that just says, you know, hey, there's a new street tree here. This is how much water, supplemental watering. If it gets real hot and dry, you know, we do have that right now. And you can tell, I mean, the trees that survive, they're the ones that are adjacent to somebody who's watering it. And so we're looking at ways to engage with residents. We've talked about, you know, putting out weekly or bi-weekly Facebook bumps. Hey, you got a new tree planted next to your house this recently, you know, if you could go out and give it a drink of water, that'd be great. You know, things like that. Like, but yeah, any ideas on the engagement in getting residents more involved, that would be great, because right now, you know, if we plant 1,000 trees a year and the contractor waters the first 1,000 that first year, that's 2,000 trees that need to be watered for 2 additional years. You know, we don't have the capacity to go out and water that and do that. And so, yeah.
Okay.
Additional questions. Mm-hmm.
And Kathy, I just want to reinforce what Shannon said. And I think this is an important discussion, because while the trees are replaced if they die within a year, this is going to sound crazy, but people become emotionally attached to their trees. And when they die, they're upset about it. And so the public perception is that many more than 8% of the trees die.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you can do about that, Tiffany, but it's just, and you probably experienced it already.
Yeah, we get folks reaching out, and I encourage them to reach out to me. And usually the ones that reach out are the ones, you know, that they're like, yeah, I'll water this time, you know, I'll water. I didn't realize, you know, and then they do. But yeah, I'm always open to suggestion on ideas. And it's one of the topics up for discussion with our steering committee and our public engagement. It's one of the questions we're asking folks, you know, like, what are some ideas on this? Because we're hoping to get some goals and recommendations that come out of this plan to implement moving forward.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Another question? I see a number of hands.
It's Chris Graham, Tiffany. I'll speak. You'll probably already have noticed in the proposed changes to Chapter 40, we added language that is extremely explicit that residents, the adjacent property owner, is responsible for care of the street lawn and what happens there. I hate to use the word street lawn. They're responsible for the care of what happens on the planted part of the right of way. It's not just snow, it's watering trees, it's collecting leaves, it's keeping the gutters clean, it's keeping the sidewalks clean, it's not putting stuff in the street when you mow the lawn or blow the leaves. It's my guess, and the reason that we put that language in there is that the great majority of people have no idea they're responsible for what happens on what they consider to be public property. And so I think a serious education program may be associated with communicating a new version of Chapter 40 will help a lot. Case in point, neighbor across the street, all of a sudden a tree appeared in her front yard. And she wrote me an email and said, "What's this tree?" And I said, well, I'm well aware the city is planting trees in every available space. And you got one. And it's on the right way. And it's hoped that you'll take care of it and like it. Well, she said, it's a surprise to me. And so is where the right of way is a surprise to her. It's on my street anyway, we don't have sidewalks and sidewalk buffer strips. Most places do. So it's a little less clear. But certainly where there are sidewalk buffer strips and sidewalks, trees on the sidewalk buffer strip are considered public property. They're taken care of by the city. It's their problem, not mine.
Mhm.
And I think that's the majority opinion in the city.
Thank you. I show one hand up. I can't see faces. It just tells me one person has a hand up.
That's me. Yeah, thanks. I just wondered if you could give an explanation for the 100% of native species for the bare root tree planting.
Oh, it's because it's very limited. We only get about 1 to 7 participants of this program. And so we only order a very small amount of bare root trees. And so I get 2 small varieties, 2 medium varieties, and 2 large canopy varieties, so that no matter who signs up, I'll have a couple of trees for them to select from. And so I select trees because I only order 6 species. I just order native. So no matter what they choose, they're getting native. It's a small program, but the residents, I think I've had one person, this fall will be her 3rd time participating. So it's popular amongst a very small niche. Okay. So we talked about some of these already, but some of the challenges of our urban forest today. One that I think is just going to carry through indefinitely is the difficult growing conditions. The urban environment is very hard to grow a tree. Limited growing space above and below. Multiple times a year, I'm writing appraisal assessments on our trees for insurance because they've been hit by cars, things like that. Species scarcity. A lot of municipalities, like I said, are having trouble finding certain species, conifers, hickories, especially. Can't find a hickory to save my life. So, and then climate change. We're changing conditions. We're having to look at species migration. What maybe we should look for plant moving forward to adapt how we foresee our conditions changing. Development's a huge one. Removal of our urban tree canopy. It's a challenge to make that up in our public space. When you have vast swaths of trees come down on the private side during development, I think it's unrealistic to expect we're going to be able to make that canopy up in the public space. The right-of-ways, we only have so many of those. Parks are great spots for planting trees, but we have to remember that they're multi-use, meaning there are some areas you don't want trees, just for recreation purposes. So it's not like you can see this big open area in a park and think, okay, we'll just go plant and forest that. That might not be the traditional use of that park. So, and then invasive species, really it's we're trying to watch to see what's coming. Myself and some of the other ISA certified arborists, we're in webinars every month on Asian longhorn beetle, spotted lanternfly, like all these things that we see has potential to get here. We're really watching spotted lanternfly right now. It was recently seen in Ohio. That's not good. I mean, they border us. We anticipate that it could come. It's going to affect a number of our hardwood species if it does get here. So we're constantly on the lookout. Our staff are in our trees all the time, daily, every day. They're up in our trees and they're driving around and they know, what to look for. If they see something out of the ordinary, they know to report it to their supervisor, who then can report it to me. We no longer offer protections on invasive species. So when someone wants to remove a calorie pear, we are not charging the canopy loss fee if they want to remove that pear. While we don't have the budget to go out and remove all of the invasives, we don't want to put any kind of barrier to residents removing invasives. So we're cognizant of that. We're very careful in the non-native trees that we do plant, that they have a strong history so that we don't plant and have another calorie pear. That's always the concern when planting non-native plants, is that back in the day, they didn't know that that was invasive, and it was a tree that did well. It was a tree, that flowered and was popular. And now we're having like pear deserts up along our interstates. In the spring, you can see them, they're flowers, they're just growing in everywhere. So that's a real concern, and we do watch for that. And then obviously insufficient resources for proper post-planting care. As we discussed, we're really challenged in providing that, just the capacity. We don't even have the equipment to be able to do it. The watering trucks necessary to be able to do it. And then we also recognize that could place a burden on the adjacent homeowner to tell them that, well, you're solely responsible. So we're getting, we have an RFP out right now to hopefully try to get a watering contractor. And we're trying to see if maybe that can't help get these trees, to help them get established in this tough environment and give them that critical care they need within that first few years. I see there's a hand up again.
Me. I've got two questions. One, could you provide us the information that's on the door hanger that you use for the paintings? That'd be really good to know, to see. And the other one, in terms of a challenge, I hate to bring this up, but when we have power outages and DTE comes back and removes a lot of wood in living trees. And I just wonder if there's a way that has there been an assessment of the street trees following trimming, following power outages?
We haven't done any assessment of any trees following outages. Quite frankly, we get DTE sends us spreadsheets, and they come to myself in our parks areas because they go, power lines go through parks and natural areas. So myself, Scott Spooner, and Becky Hand with NAP, they send us a list, and other than the removals where I have authority to say yes or no on removals, there's nothing I can do. They're going to prune the trees. So we haven't done any kind of study on whether those trees have since died. But they're certainly contributing, to the fair and poor ratings of our urban forest, for sure. I'm open to ideas on how to fix
I just wonder,
that.
I don't know about fixing it, but just understanding it. If maybe there's an intern who could dovetail the inventory with the spreadsheets to see how many, and what species or whatever, the age of the tree, that kind of thing might be useful. Just for information, and then figure out what to do as the next steps.
It's a good idea. Another hand. Someone want to unmute?
Yeah. Two things. One is I'm wondering if you're starting to see oak wilt in Ann Arbor or not. I've seen it in some other places not that far from here. And so I'm just wondering what you all are seeing.
We haven't seen any in Ann Arbor yet. I haven't heard from the DNR that there's any here. I do know that it is on our borders. I know that it's close. Anytime, the only calls I've gotten were from residents that were trees on private. And I can't go look at trees on private. So what I do is I give them Kevin Sayers' contact information, and he reaches out to them. And I always make sure that they CC me on it. And the DNR sends somebody out to take a look. But so far we haven't had a positive hit within the city, but we do know it's coming. And which is why when I got on, one of the first things I did was get one of our ISA certified arborists, oak wilt qualified through the state.
Great.
And so he's responded to a couple of different things, but it hasn't been oak wilt.
Okay. I'm really glad that you all are on top of that, because it's pretty devastating. The other thing is just an anecdotal thing I noticed, which is going down Geddes, I'm noticing a big area of tree lilac that seems to be just starting to go nutsoid in some of the forest, the adjacent kind of hillside forest going down Geddes, where I probably saw I don't know, 25 of them all blooming, clearly naturalizing in the woods there. So I know that you all are so limited about what trees actually work under power lines and all those kinds of things. But I just wanted to note that, that it may be one to watch in terms of it starting to spread on its own.
Have you heard, other than that, have you heard anything about tree lilac? Because I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything. I just saw it. I mean, I'm happy to point out to you at another time where I saw it.
Yeah, please do. If you might send me a Google map and circle.
Yep, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks.
It's it's down near Dave Shipman's house at the bottom of Getty's near Arlington.
Yep.
And in June, I guess maybe it's a little early, but
Oh yeah, July is usually when like late June, early July is usually when
on a calm evening or night, the smell down through there is absolutely fabulous. I hope you don't have tree lilac on your bucket list. It's a wonderful plant, even though it's Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Not suitable for a street tree.
Yep. Edie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Two quick questions for you, Tiffany. The first is, since the city has, such a kind of exemplary and advanced urban forest program, I'm just wondering, do you collaborate, or have you considered opportunities to potentially collaborate with other communities in the surrounding area to kind of, share some of these best practices and how it's been successful, and just kind of, build that resilience in surrounding communities?
Yeah, I have an open email thread with City of Ann Arbor, I keep saying that, City of Grand Rapids, City of Lansing, City of Novi, and then I think it was Washtenaw Summer. They just got a new county forester. I think her name is Summer Roberts. But anyway, she's also included in on it. And we're constantly, what species are you planting? What are you finding hard to find? What are you trying? Things like that. I asked about watering trees, and Ann Arbor is not alone in this struggle. And Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Novi all said, no, you're writing a contract for a watering contractor. Let us know how it goes. Send us the language. If it works for you, we're going to try it, because they're running into the exact same problem. They're planting the trees, but there isn't the infrastructure or resources in place to then maintain those trees for the 3 years watering that they really should get. And so we really have an open collaborative process with other communities. This is what we're doing. What are you trying? And we do that. I also go and speak at Michigan State University's urban forestry class to talk about urban forestry and urban forestry programs and what we're doing here in Ann Arbor. I also this year did that for Eastern Michigan University to talk about programs here in Ann Arbor. And then we're working with Urban Ashes, like I said, about a pilot program here in Ann Arbor for urban wood reuse, and trying to build like a regional potential hub to pull wood from the waste stream. And the cities of Ann Arbor, there are a few cities outside of Michigan who heard about what's going on and have reached out to Urban Ashes and have gotten on a wait list to potentially get a program mimic after what's going on in Ann Arbor.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad to hear all of that. And then my second question is, does the city currently or intend to use the American Forest Tree Equity Score in any of its prioritization and planning of street tree plantings? Kind of the neighborhood by neighborhood score. Does that factor into your decision making at all at this time?
With our huge street tree plantings, we go into huge areas, and yeah, we do take a look at where trees are needed. We really are building the program you're talking about with the Elizabeth Dean Fund. We have gone, and my intern is actually leading this charge, Jamie. She has worked with OSI, Stomissy's team, and has been using the Tree Equity Score and coming up with planting packets. So neighborhoods that it's got the Tree Equity Score, and it's got like Canopy scores, and it's got all these different things, and really rising to the top, the areas that truly need the trees the most. And then the Dean Fund is prioritizing those and they're going to go in and plant entire neighborhoods. And we're actually going to run a pilot on that. I think this fall is the plan. So, and really just overhauling, maybe not just a street, but like a neighborhood.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was asked about educational opportunities for residents, as well as maintenance staff and contractors within our city that does work that comes near any of our trees. Each resident who receives a tree does get a door hanger, and I'm looking to send that out as a mailer instead, like an informational mailer. Rita, I have a note. I'm going to get that sent off to, if not Galen, and then he can share it with you all to see what we give away. And then we also place trunk guards on each of our trees. And we've gone back to our small trees and put trunk guards on for like the last 8 or 10 years worth of plantings. So we've gone in and we've done that. And I have to say the Elizabeth Dean Fund has funded a lot of that, a lot of the tree guards, and it's been a lifesaver. We're seeing a lot of reduction in mortality loss to the string trimmers. We're seeing a lot of that. And then our park staff, our parks maintenance staff, when they're first hired on, they're instructed to stay away from the trees, especially with the weed trimmers and mowers. Anytime a park steward or someone sees that there's an issue and it gets brought to my attention, it always gets brought to the park maintenance supervisor's attention, and they re-educate their staff and make sure that they understand the importance and stay away from the city's trees. Give 365 with some of their staff. We do tree ID, young tree training, pruning, and forest health education as requested. So when they get a bunch of new staff on, sometimes they'll reach out and they'll ask us to provide just some basic training for some of their folks. And then every year, minus that big COVID year there, we do our Citizen Pruner training. Citizen Pruner is a volunteer program that works with resident volunteers who sign up to go through a training with myself and some of our forestry staff on pruning young trees. We provide all the equipment, all the training, all the safety gear. They don't donate their time and they come and sign up for this program. We have training days and then we have work days, and they come out and they hone the skills that they learned on pruning small trees. And the city gets the benefit of, one, not only like interacting with our residents and giving them an idea of what we do, but two, our young trees are getting pruned. And it's a great, networking event. We've had people from the very beginning who've donated their time every year for the past 12 years. So the program is hugely popular. I get people on the wait list, that sign up every year. It's great. And then our mowing maintenance contractors, I talked to the public works supervisor. He said that there really hasn't been much of an issue, but they do tell them to stay away from our trees. But again, since we put those trunk guards on our smaller trees, we really haven't seen much of an issue. We haven't had apparently reports of any issue within the last few years, and none that have been brought to my attention. Yes, I see a hand.
Hi, this is such a great presentation. I really want to thank you for it. I have a constituent who is quite vigilant about the weed whacking issue and who has actually found, or at least last season when it was green again, so not yet this year, I haven't heard from her, but she has definitely seen damage in city parks from weed whackers. So the way to do it is how exactly does it get brought to your attention?
Yep.
What's the most way for her to address that?
She can either submit a C-click fix thing,
right?
Or you can pass her my contact info. And what I would do is get her right to Scott Spooner. Mm-hmm. He's the maintenance supervisor, deputy manager under parks. Mm-hmm. But you can always pass my info on it if it's not something that I personally, I can't almost like contract out to parks. I don't really have any, authority, maybe is the right word, over park trees, mm-hmm. strictly street trees. I go and assist parks as they need. So I would get that information to them so that they could address their maintenance crews and make sure that they are maintaining appropriate distances from the trees.
So is that better coming from you, or is it something that it would be just as effective for her to go straight to Scott Pruner with?
She could do either.
Okay.
She could go straight to Scott if she wanted to cut out like a middleman type thing, but I also bug Scott, and sometimes his office is like right outside of mine. And so I always say, hey, did you reach out to that person I forwarded on to you? And so
Good. All right.
There's always that aspect. Scott's really good at getting back to people, but
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, of course. So if anyone does see anything concerns, I can't get out and look at all of our 50-some thousand trees, almost 60,000 trees. So if someone's seeing something, absolutely get it to my attention, and I can get someone out to look at it and try to stop whatever's happening. I'm going to try to fly through some of these. This is just comparing what we've done in the last 8 years since our last urban forest management plan. I'm sorry, I can't see your faces. Is there someone else with a hand up that had a question?
No, I don't see one, Tiffany.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can pretty much skip over these.
I'm sorry, I failed to lower my hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can pretty much skip
Okay.
over these things. They're in the public record, and
Yeah, they are. It's just kind of what we've done in the last 8 years. I don't want to take up all your guys' time. So here's the second to last slide. This is, again, the planning process. We're here. What do we want? We're reaching out to people. I'm meeting with you all. We've had our steering committee meetings. We have our focus group meetings. We had our first community-wide engagement meeting. We're taking in information, having folks look at our past objectives, recommendations, what's still a priority, what's a new priority that's maybe bubbling up to the top, that kind of thing. And we'll work our way through. We anticipate getting a final, we'll get a draft here this fall, and we'll send the draft out in bulk, like to you guys, to everybody to comment on. We're going to go and have public meetings and say, this is what we heard. This is what we've done. Did we get it right? Did we miss anything? Give folks a chance to respond back to the draft plan. And then in about March of 2023, we should have a finalized plan to take to City Council for adoption. Just a couple things. First, I wanted to remind you all, if you haven't, there was a survey sent out to your group. It was also sent to the Natural Features Committee as a subcommittee of the Environmental Commission. We wanted to hear their thoughts as well. That if you could just fill that out and give us your thoughts, we would really appreciate it. I would also appreciate if you had any additional comments that you couldn't put in that survey. Feel free to forward them on to me. They're all being captured for our consultants to make sure that we're taking in all of the comments and really seeing what rises to the top. And second, I wanted to thank you for your time and interest in our urban forest and what we're doing with the urban forestry program and our urban forest management plan update. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to take them now. And thank you so much. I will go ahead and stop sharing unless anyone needs my contact info still.
Well, thank you very much, Tiffany. You've been a real soldier here talking to us today. I just had one comment, but I don't expect an extended response to it. And that is that you have a good webpage. The city's forest webpage is pretty complete, but you don't say anything about invasive species. Okay. So I think a lot of I driving around town or riding around on my bike mostly, I see a lot of properties that have glossy buckthorn going right up to the sidewalk, things like that. So I was wondering, where does the city express concerns about this or this as a potential problem? Which website handles the invasive species information?
Our natural area preservation, so NAP, they have entire sections on invasive species, but what we could do is add a link on our page that would, concerned about invasive species in the city, and link right over to the NAP pages about, because I think they have like glossy buckthorn and some other things up there. They're really the ones that are handling the invasives.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's a great suggestion. And Sarah Nedrich, you have your hand up.
Hi, thanks, Tiffany. That was an excellent presentation, and I love like all the data you guys have collected recently. That was really a cool comparison. One thing I was wondering about, we've had a lot more big storms lately that are knocking down trees. In our neighborhood, we had some that were in the roadway, and the response time was quite slow to come out and clean them up. So I was wondering, like, how you're set up, if you have enough resources to react to these big storm events where you have lots of down trees all at one time, or if your program needs more resources in that respect.
Well, if we get a big storm event, like a really big one, we have 2 crews. So if there's a number of trees in the roadways and stuff, there will be a delay. We have to prioritize. So getting the big arteries open first, roadway arteries. After that, we make sure side roads and roads that into subdivisions, things like that get cleared. Then we go and do sidewalks. When we need additional help, that's when Molly, the director of public works, that's when she steps in and she pulls people from parks, and she pulls people from our other work areas. I can't speak hugely to our staffing level need. She would know that more than me. I can tell you, we don't get a ton of storms where we have multiple trees down all over the place. Luckily, those aren't real frequent. But when they do, Molly does have a plan in place, where she starts pulling people that do have experience, because not everyone, we can't just grab anybody to go out there and do the work that these guys do. We can't just hand a chainsaw to anybody. And expect that they're going to be able to run this chipper and in all the specialized equipment. But there is a plan in place. And while I don't know the details of it, I'm sure if you reached out to Molly, she would be able to give you that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
Ruber, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have one, what I think is a quick question. You mentioned the DTE sort of topping off the trees and doing their pruning. But I wonder what you think, or if you have concerns about DTE, that they're currently doing the natural gas lines and digging up a lot of sidewalk. And I've seen a lot of roots exposed during that process. And I wonder if that's a concern of yours, or if you have conversations with DTE about it, or coordinate your work around what they're doing.
Yeah, I always have concerns when anybody is going to be doing any kind of excavating. They had their right-of-way permits come through, and I'm on the review for anything that might impact a city tree. So any utility installation of any kind, if it has a potential to impact a city tree root, I'm involved. We keep track of what they're doing. I can tell you in the past, DTE went outside the scope of their permits, damaged a number, I think it was 5 or 6 large landmark sugar maple trees. You may or may not be aware, sugar maple does not handle root disturbance well. And we ended up needing to have those trees removed, and they had to go back and pay all the removal fees, huge canopy loss fees, a whole bunch of other stuff. So we do watch them, we do monitor them to make sure that they are staying within the parameters of their permits. However, if they do step outside of what is allowable under the permits, again, I'm not always on site to see things. If people are noticing things, absolutely shoot an email is the best way to reach me, because I get my email on this. This doesn't always have signal, but it has enough internet and email gets through. So reach out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I see 2 hands.
It's me, Christopher Graham, Tiffany. We had a derecho go through Ann Arbor in July of 1980. The destruction of trees across the city was monumental. Streets in Ann Arbor Hills through the native forest fragment areas were completely impassable. A lot of us went out to help. We got, within a couple of days, one lane open. It took weeks for the city to clean up the mess. And when these things happen, it's just genuinely a lot of time. And people just have to be patient. Thankfully, there's not been a derecho through Ann Arbor or a tornado that I'm aware of that's caused any sort of widespread damage since then. So that's what, 40 years?
The hope is it continues. We have had some windstorm events where we've been locked up. Like even myself, I'm in a vehicle looking for downed trees and getting service requests in and stuff. We have had that where we've pulled, where the director of public works, Molly, is out in a vehicle assessing damage and stuff as well. And I think our response time is pretty good, but it's just a matter of time. It takes, those trees are huge and they're heavy, and we can't just take anybody and give them the tools that we use to do the work that needs to be done. So while we have backups, there will be some time. The only thing that we try to warn our residents against is just be aware when an event comes through, you get a lot of people that show up who say that they're experts and know what they're doing, and they aren't insured, and residents don't know that, and they get themselves into a tight spot because, the person causes damage to their property or something and they're not insured, and it falls on the resident. So we always want to make sure that they're hiring reputable companies if there's damage on their own property for their own private trees. And if we contract anything out, we have contracts in place if we had to fall back on that we could, Davy Tree, the same contract the parks uses. Commissioner Mitchell.
Tiffany, thank you for hanging in on this. One more question about the DTE and the underground work. Is there a time frame for evaluating a tree condition following work? So, for example, I had our neighborhood had the DTE lines replaced last year. I expect actually that there will be some response by the trees because of the roots I saw exposed and cut. So I just wondered if is there like a 2-year time lag or something where they're responsible?
Oh, on the right-of-way permits, you mean?
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know if there is or not. Normally we're out there and we see they're outside the scope of their work. If they're doing work within the scope of their permit and the tree can't handle it, then I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
It's usually when people go outside, it's but if you notice, and sometimes there's not a lot I can do and sometimes there is, it's going to be a case by case. Like, the other times they went outside their scope, they went outside where they were supposed to be, and they went right up. They were supposed to be putting line down the center of the road, and they went and put it right up against the curb and excavated the curb out. They were supposed to do, so they were right up within like 2 feet of these trunk, clearly outside of their scope of approved work area. And so, yeah, we could nail them. Other times, no, it's not like a site plan. Like when a tree dies within 3 years on an approved site plan, right, they still might have to go back and mitigate. But
that's what I was hoping for. Okay, thanks.
No, but it's something for discussion, isn't it? Though, like moving forward, is maybe there should be something like that, or they should put in for request for removal of the tree ahead of time, which they still have to mitigate for. But I don't know. It's something to think about, isn't it? I'd be happy to have further conversations about that and what.
Yeah. Okay. I have some photos from last year. Maybe I'll send you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I think I went over my half-hour allotment.
Well,
Tiffany, this was really great.
yeah, no, this was important, and thank you so much, Tiffany, for bearing up here. And I think we in the public have a much better idea of how the city's managing its forestry and how we can help city staff. Okay,
Yeah.
so much, and take care of yourself. I promise we'll complete the survey. And I'll get my neighbors to do it too.
Yeah, it'll be up until June 15th. So, you don't have to like rush right out there and do it, but June 15th we'll end up closing the survey so that we can download the results and go from there. But thank you for having me.
Okay. So let's see the next item on the agenda, and we're running late on time. So the next item on the agenda is the municipal electric utility. Greg Woodring is going to present do a presentation of Ann Arbor for Public Power. Now, my understanding is that this presentation is identical to one that was already presented to the Energy Commission, and I think, and the total slide deck is available for public record. So I'm gonna, I'd like to ask Mr. Wooding if he would consider just covering slides 27 and 28. Which are, and field questions from the Environmental Commission. These are the slides that deal with the process of creating a municipal utility and a comparison of SEU versus municipalization. And I understand that I know the City Council approved a feasibility study, so we're already at the first or second step there outlined at page 27. So, Mr. Woodring, are you happy to do this, or Kathy, you have your hand up?
As an alternative, could we postpone this until the June meeting? Because I think it's an important topic and it is very late.
Yeah, it is an important. So why don't we do that? Do I have a second? Seconded by Shannon Gibrandel. All who approve postponing this presentation until the June meeting, raise your hand. Any opposed?
I'd just like to offer my apologies to Mr. Woodridge, and he stayed with us, and I just think this is a more respectful approach to have a full presentation in June.
No. Yep, I agree, Kathy. That would be the best process. This does deserve much more time than we have available today. So thank you, Mr. Woodring, for hanging on. We will definitely have you on the agenda for next month, which is June 26th or 23rd. Yes, June 23rd.
Okay, well, sounds good. Thank you all for your time.
Sorry about that. So the next item on the agenda is unfinished business. There'll be there'll be a presentation about Gelman MS4 notice of violation and update. Let's see, I believe
Hi, Steve. Dan Bicknell.
Yep. Hi, Dan.
Is it possible for me to share a few slides?
Well, of course. We do have a permit. We do have a, yeah, please, Galen can make you the host so you can manage your own presentation. But I'm hoping you can be brief and just cover the important topics in the asks.
Yes, I think I can. Well, I will.
Yeah, I know it's a complicated subject, but we have a document posted on Legistar, which is pretty thorough in explaining the case.
Right. Galen, can I share a few slides?
Lisa, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that indeed there is a very clear and thorough document posted on Legistar. So if we could cut to the chase, which is, I think, very clear and self-explanatory, and figure out what we are being asked to do other than know about this, that would be excellent, because it is already 8:26, and I think I don't know how much time is anticipated for the Chapter 40 discussion. But I, for one, will not be able to stay longer than 9:30, as I had a 6:30 meeting this morning and have another 6:30 meeting tomorrow morning. So I can't, this will ruin my health. So not that y'all can stay on, but I'm gonna have to hop off.
Well, Steve, maybe what I could do is just kind of summarize the review, because as Lisa was saying, I had a chance to send out on May 17th to everyone, the elected officials, you all, of course, included, the summary of really kind of where we are. As you all will remember, there was a resolution passed by Ann Arbor City Council and the City Environmental Commission asking the Water Resources Commissioner to please send a notice of violation to Gelman Sciences, which has this 4 mile long, 1 mile dioxane plume moving through the city, which is entering into Allen Creek Drain. And Allen Creek Drain is regulated by a federal municipal separate storm sewer permit, MS4 permit. And the Water Resources Commissioner is responsible for administering that permit. So in January 2021, he sent a notice of violation to Gelman that you're not allowed to have dioxane enter into the Allen Creek Drain. And over the last year or so, Gelman and the Assistant Attorney General, with support from the Water Resources Commissioner, has looked into what needs to be done. And on February 1st of 2022, Gelman sent a letter to the Water Resources Commissioner and the State Environmental Agency, EGLE, saying that the problems of the MS4, the federal MS4 permit, will be addressed within the current court order. Remember, there's a court order that covers the remediation of the Gelman plume. That's a state law that governs it. It's a Part 201 state law. And so what that agreement says is essentially that you will be able to have, Gelman will be able to have dioxane consistent with what's required under state regulations, comply with this federal MS4 permit. The rub is, under the state regulations, you can have up to 280 or more parts per billion of dioxane in the plume that goes into this Allen Creek drain. But the federal permit says, no, you have to be below background levels. And so the review and the evaluation and the agreement between the Assistant Attorney General and Gelman is that you do not have to clean up to background levels before it enters this Allen Creek drain. Again, the problem is the Assistant Attorney General's view precipitates a situation where you have a state law that is less stringent than the federal requirements under the Federal Clean Water Act Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permit. Sorry, Steve. So in short, that's kind of where we are in the status. As a matter of fact, the Assistant Attorney General has directed the Water Resources Commissioner to essentially put aside the notice of violation.
Yeah, that was a very good document you forwarded to us and that we posted on Legistar. So what legal remedies do you suggest are open to us?
Well,
looks like a court case, you know.
Well, this is the problem we have, isn't it? I mean, we're local citizens, local government, trying to deal with a problem that was created by a state assistant attorney general. And so my thought is that the best course of action is, and the really only viable regulatory option, is to ask the federal government to come in and start an enforcement action against Gelman on this federal Clean Water Act MS4 permit violation. And my thought is that such an action will rightfully have the federal government manage the correction of this federal permit violation and not put the onus on the local governments to continue this compliance oversight responsibility. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just very similar to the court order and the proposed Fourth Amendment consent judgment. It's a very bad deal that this Assistant Attorney General has put forth. And it's a clear violation. You cannot have a state law have less stringent requirements than that under federal law. It's that simple. But yet, here we are. Yeah. So I think the recourse is to ask the federal government to come in and, enforce what's required under this federal MS4 permit.
Okay. So in other words, we may draft a resolution and forward it to City Council after we've had more discussion about this, and with city staff, and try to see what the options are. What the cost. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The other recourse is, this was just the Assistant Attorney General, making this agreement. We could ask Dana Nessel if she agrees with it. As a matter of fact, in one of the card meetings a couple months ago, we asked the Assistant Attorney General if the actual Attorney General understood the situation, that he's agreeing to have a state law take precedent over federal law, and he said he didn't know whether the Attorney General knew about this or not. So that's another avenue, is to ask Dana whether she agrees with this.
Okay. Those are both very good suggestions. So I think we will be taking this up over the next month or two. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Dan? Let's see, Lisa, Dish, and then Kathy.
I think Kathy's hand was up first, so I want to let her go first.
Okay. First, I just want to thank Dan and mention how valuable he is. And we have someone in this community who is not only an expert in this area, but has been very tenacious, and that's what we need, and has gone to the federal government. So a couple of things that I've done. We have a new lobbyist at the federal level, Dykema. And so I did mention, Dan, that you had a meeting with the Congresswoman's staff so that they were aware. I don't think they're going to be able to help you and the Congresswoman, because I think you're more than capable of following this through. But I did want to let them know. And secondly, we have a new city attorney in Ann Arbor, and I suggested that she schedule a meeting with you, Dan, because she's trying to understand the history of the Gelman plume. And you're probably the only person that's going to be able to give a 30-minute overview that she's going to understand. It might take longer, but you're very concise, and you just did it. So I think that would be very valuable, and it would also provide a different perspective than just the history from the lawyer's view. So
sure, I'd be happy to help out.
Thank you.
Lisa, you have the floor.
Thanks. I just wanted to lay out 3 points that I think we should make sure that we do some research around before we write any kind of a resolution. And I think it's a great point that Dan just brought up, and grateful for his work on this. We should probably find out if the AG agrees with the AAG. I'm curious to hear what Evan Pratt thinks of this report. It's not clear to me that this is kind of out of his hands, basically, which I think he has said before, that the state and the feds are fighting this out, but nonetheless might be a good idea to check in with him. And then I definitely think that we need to, before recommending any strategy that involves bringing the federal government in, we should check with our lawyers around this and make sure that there's no conflicts in that, because we have an EPA process going on, we have the consent judgment process going on, and now we have this MS4 permit, which is distinct, although wrapped up in all of that. And so Gelman just continues to be a mess upon a mess. And so I wanted us to make sure that we have feedback from everybody who's engaged in this process before we step into something that we might not know what we could potentially be setting in motion. And also, like, what is even the mechanism for bringing the federal government in? That would probably be a lawsuit, and I'm not sure how the city initiates that. So, and I mean that literally, I don't know. So yeah, I'll stop talking now because I think there's more expertise in the room.
Well, just to respond to a couple of points, Lisa, you are correct that Evan Pratt, even though he holds the permit and he is the official person responsible for administrating and issuing this notice of violation, has asked that the Attorney General help out. So he is really completely deferring to the Assistant Attorney General on this. The second point is that what could happen is fairly easy. If the federal government views that this permit violation has been going on for a long period of time, which it has for 3 years, and it should have been addressed immediately, they can take over the notice of violation and bring an action themselves against Gelman to demand compliance with the MS4 permit. So it doesn't have to go to court, doesn't have to do anything else. It's just that instead of the state pursuing this, or the Water Resources Commissioner pursuing this, the federal government takes back and takes action on this particular permit. But I agree with you that it would be good to understand these particulars.
Okay. So Kathy, you still have your hand up.
Yes, and I agree with Lisa's third point that the legal department definitely needs to know what is happening. And that's one of the reasons I mentioned it to the new city attorney and offered to set up a meeting with Dan Bicknell, because he really is the one with the expertise. I'm not sure that we have employed our outside counsel on this MS4 permit violation in any way. Is that true, Dan? I don't remember anything being written by outside counsel.
No, like you say, there's this distinction between the proposed Fourth Amendment consent judgment dealing with the Part 201 regulations that govern the groundwater cleanup, and then there's this federal MS4 permit. And I don't believe that the city attorney has worked at all on this MS4 permit matter.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, I think that council had a resolution that initially came from the Environmental Commission that was directed at Evan Pratt to take action.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, so, all right, Dan, thank you so much once again. And I think the action points here is that you need to have a conversation with the new city attorney as the first step. And then, did I mistake you? Or did you say that Evan Pratt has already appealed this decision by the Assistant Attorney General to the Attorney General, Dana Newsom?
No, sorry. Evan has left this in the hands of the Assistant Attorney General. He's deferred completely to the Assistant Attorney General.
Oh, okay.
And the Assistant Attorney General was asked in a public meeting whether the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, was aware of this problem, and he said he did not know. He had not raised this or cleared it, if you will, through her.
Okay. All righty. Well, okay. So Kathy, maybe you can just get the city attorney together with, and I'll talk to Evan Pratt and myself and see what's going on there, and then we can table any further action here until next month. at the earliest, once we've passed through these steps satisfactorily, and got some advice. And so we'll put this on the agenda, Dan, as soon as possible, to come up with a plan and a public discussion. Okay.
If I can help, please let me know.
Sure will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you once again. So, so the next item on the agenda is Chapter 40, the Chapter 40 revisions. So, Rita, who's going to present that? Hey, Chris.
I do have it available if, and Chris, if you want to talk, that's certainly welcome. Galen, if you could give me some sharing privileges. And I guess I would first like to ask the group whether you all need to see the actual Chapter 40 as revised, or which way we would like to proceed. It could be looking at the revised document, or it could be looking at a resolution to endorse it.
Anybody?
Preference?
I'm happy just to look at it as is. I mean, we've been looking at this off and on for some time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say as is, are you talking about?
The draft revision dated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me just close something here for a second.
Yeah. I've read over the whole thing. It seems pretty straightforward, and I'm aware of the conflicts that existed before. So, let's see. I had one question about it.
This is it. Can you see the document?
Yep. All right. Thank you. I had only
here it is from the start.
Okay. Yeah, I personally only had one question about it, and that is where does the city get its invasive species list? It refers to an invasive species list, so it's not clear to me where that comes from.
When we first adopted a local wetlands ordinance, I think as part of that, it was required either in the implementation or by the state ordinance that we address invasive species in the city. And so a list of, and that we address what planting should occur in mitigation wetlands. And the idea was that we shouldn't be permitting invasive species to be planted in mitigation wetlands. And so a fairly comprehensive list with 2 or 3 levels of priority was developed in the early 1990s.
How often is that updated?
And it was just updated in November, but the updated list has not been posted on the city's website. It's available internally. I've been asking that the language surrounding our list be modified to apply to uplands and to the city in general, rather than being tailored specifically for wetland projects. I don't know what the status of my request is, but I'm sure we'll get somewhere with it. So the city has an extensive invasive species list. It governs what can be planted in development projects, what can be planted in wetlands. It's addressed by the Natural Areas Program for how they're dealing with these species on our natural areas, and they have much outreach information available to people about invasive species in the city. The most recent update has more species. We are continuing to get more and more.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that. It's not clear, what authority generates this list and how often it's updated. But it doesn't need to be part of this this Chapter 40 ordinance. But I think it should have pointers to it and with some explanation that's available to the public.
As soon as we have a live link it'll be there.
Okay. Okay, great. Sorry for the interruption. But let's see. So Rita, or Chris, what do you want to? Do you have the floor to talk about this, or to field?
I'll just make a comment, which is, first off, I really thank Chris for spending a lot of time thinking about this. He's had a lot of literally hands-on experience thinking about and actively planting in these areas and working with individuals and contractors. That makes it have some good ground truthing, I think. I feel that the concepts that it includes are really good, that it encourages people to plant in what we're now calling the sidewalk buffer strip, the area between the roadway and the sidewalk edge closest to the roadway, if there is such a sidewalk, otherwise to the property line, and to encourage people to plant things other than mowed grass, and to use safe heights of plants, maximum height, in particular areas that are sensitive, like streets, corners, hills, as well as crosswalks. So there's a 24-inch height in most sensitive areas, I'm calling them sensitive areas, and there's 36-inch height allowed in other areas, both of which have an assessment of how opaque a planting is. So opaque, a seriously opaque planting, in my estimation, would be something like a trimmed hedge that is very difficult.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but am I the only one who's having trouble hearing Rita?
I am too.
I am very sorry. I will see if I can improve this. Hold on. Sorry.
All right. Is this any better?
I think that's
Is
better.
it better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm really sorry. Thank you for letting me know. Anyway, I think that the modifications that Chris has suggested are really good, that their educational issues are made available to members of the community who want to do these kinds of plantings, as well as when community standards may be approaching someone to modify or to let them know that there may be a violation. So there's an opportunity for education. So those are really the kinds of things that I think are important. And I support this.
Any questions for Rita or Chris? Okay, I hear or see. Oh, Kathy, you have your hand up. Kathy Griswold.
Sorry, in section 3.13, point 4, it refers to 8-foot vertical space above a public sidewalk. And I think that we want to include that phrase in number 3 because it just says below 8 feet. But there isn't the reference to 8 feet vertical space above the ground, I guess it would be in this case.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying use parallel language?
Yes.
Use the same language.
Hopefully that would be a friendly amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, do you have any comment?
Yeah, that seems like a friendly amendment.
Well, the 2 points are addressing different subjects, but perhaps that can be done easily. One is
section 3 is about this trying.
Well, isn't there a difference here because it's saying in between 24 inches and 8 feet, which is different than this above the sidewalk, which is the whole space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my comment would be that this is one of those areas that as it moves forward, we've been talking about diagrams, and this might be a place where a diagram would help
So the original ordinance was kind of a confused muddle in my view.
Right.
That's why I got involved. And as I said earlier in the meeting, I think the great majority of people are quite confused about where their front property line is and what they own and what they don't. A lot of people think they own to the middle of the road, and once upon a time that was true. And very few people understand that short of a significant tax increase in the city, to add a lot of staff, the city cannot maintain. They can't maintain the pavement in the streets well enough, to be honest about it, much less anything outside the curbs. So I thought it was important, and Rita genuinely boosted my interest in this, that we get a lot more explicit about what the right of way is, where it is, what's possible, how to keep people safe, at the same time get away from suggesting, as so much of city specifications that in the Green Book suggest, that grass should occur from the property line to the back of the curb, except for the sidewalk, if there is one. It also addresses what the older ordinance did, only in a muddled way, what people's responsibility is on their private property with regard to vegetation. And I think the city lost the lawsuit not long ago.
Yes.
Because it didn't have explicit language such as we've put in here now.
Yeah, I think language is pretty clear to me.
And meanwhile, we're trying to encourage native and natural habitat plantings and natural habitat management, and trying to discourage the use of grass, mowed grass, instead of side lawn extension. We changed the definition of sidewalk buffer strip.
It's good.
Most of all, the obligations of people to take care of their street lawn, not just for snow on the sidewalk, but for watering trees and making sure their contractors don't blow leaves and grass clippings. And I've seen the city employees do this into the street and not clean them up. On and on. I mean, we tried to get much more explicit about a lot of things that have been in a very gray area.
Oh, that's very good. I mean, it also says here in section 312 that it's the city administrator that has the authority to decide, what the specific triangle of vision is for a particular location. So it's a city administrator or his designate.
Well,
So,
a lot of that is already not in code, but in what's called the Green Book. This obscure manual that used to cost thousands of dollars to get a copy of, but which is now online. And we've unburied some of those specifications, including site triangles. And although there are no graphics in the Green Book, we're hoping we can develop some here so people understand it better.
Yeah. Okay. So
I did see a hand. Chris Vandenbroek, did you want to ask a question? Your hand was up.
I answered my own question. Thanks. It's okay.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Chris or Rita? And what's the ask here?
The ask here is for a resolution of endorsement of this. Can you see a new document? This is a resolution to endorse the revisions of Chapter 40 and to, I'm just going to zip down to the results, to ask our council members and the commission to take this to City Council for additional review and discussion among staff as needed, so that we can ideally move this along. So it's been a long time, and we'd like to implement it as soon as we can, so we can start educating the public.
Okay, and my understanding is that this has been reviewed by city staff and the legal department.
It is not completely reviewed by the legal department. And so that is part of the reason that we brought it here, was so that it could go back through a formal a request by city council for that review.
Are the council members here happy with that? Kathy?
Yes, I am. I had asked staff to review it just to sort of fast track it. But realizing that this has been in the works and discussed for at least 3, if not 4 city administrators, not just these changes, but other revisions. And so there were a number of departments that wanted to take a look at it, but I would recommend that the Environmental Commission pass it and move it forward, and that would be the normal process for staff to then take a look at it as it's being considered as a council resolution. And I guess I'd also like to thank Rita and Chris for the tremendous amount of work they've done on this. I've thanked them personally, but I want to thank them publicly as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy, for your leadership.
Yeah, any other comments about this draft resolution of support? Okay, is there a motion to I have a motion to consider this resolution for a vote from Shannon, seconded by Bridget. Okay, all who approve of this resolution as written, as drafted, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? I hear and see none. Any abstentions? I hear and see none, so it passes unanimously. So Galen, would you pass this on to City Council in the normal procedure?
Yes.
And thank you so much. I mean, I know for Kathy Griswold bringing this to our attention a number of years ago by now. And Chris, and I think Chris and the Natural Features work did a great job. I think the language is very clear and it's very well organized. So
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Oh, Edie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just real briefly, as we were talking about, the education needs to help folks understand street tree responsibilities and the possible changes in aesthetics and everything that might be associated with this program. We might want to consider something kind of like the rain garden interpretive signage. I think that's pretty successful in helping people to understand why this looks different and what's going on here. And there could be something the city could do that's similar, that says like, this is my native plant buffer strip and this is why I do it. Just to help address that and get ahead of those kind of changes that people see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, let's see if there's no other comments about this. Let's pass on to let's see, new business. We have no new business. Reports from committees, other commissions, council, and chair. So Natural Features report.
Hopefully next time we meet, there'll be a package of proposed changes to the UDC for you. My fingers are crossed. We're through all but one of the sections that we want to present to you in the first package.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Yeah, let us know if you're ready by a week before the next meeting.
All right.
Okay, so we have time. Pollinators.
I would like Bridget to chime in on this, but I want to just say that we're nearly through No Mow May. It's been very interesting to see some different yards, to see people participate, and to. Pardon me?
A lot of dandelions.
Yeah. And we've had, from my perspective, it's been really fun to have some conversations with people. There are some people who don't want to do it at all, and that's totally their choice. But I think well, I'll just give you one stat. We had 394 people register formally for this program. I think there are many more people who are participating informally without registration because we got started really late. But I'm pretty pleased with just that particular statistic. And Bridget, I don't know if you want to chime in and give a comment. That'd be great.
Yeah, people are talking about it, that's for sure. With both, positive and, maybe we're getting some. The conversation is starting, which is great. We have an email that we've been checking. People that are.
Sorry, I can't hear at all.
Oh. Can everybody else hear me?
Not very well.
Oh, okay.
Very low.
Oh, okay. I don't have headphones in or anything, so I'm not sure what it is. I'll just talk louder for now. We have an email that we've been monitoring that we send out, that we communicate with participants using that email. We checked in with them mid-month. We've got some significant feedback from people about ideas and what they were seeing. And we just sent out another email today reminding them they have to mow before June 1st, giving them tips on how to mow their very long grass. And we hope to maybe send out a survey, getting some more feedback from those who participated, and be ready for next year.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rich. Thank you, pollinators. How about zero waste?
Zero waste is so busy. I can't even list everything that we're doing, but we have a team of 5 C's students, in addition to the two interns that we've already hired. And we are busily at work collaborating with OSI, developing a map of circular economy businesses. That's an interactive map, and it will not only tell you where they are, you can sort them by thrift stores or places where you could buy in bulk. You can also find out what each of these things actually does, why we count them as participants in the circular or reuse economy. We are working with these interns to do case studies of the Ann Arbor Public Library, of Recycle Ann Arbor, and of 1 or 2 thrift stores, definitely the Ann Arbor Thrift Shop and possibly also PTO, to talk about how these circular economy businesses work. It's really important to feature RAA, not just as a great mission-based recycler, which they are, but as a mission-based recycler that has a very clear process of decision-making around what it accepts for recycling and how it is that we get authentic recycling from RAA, in addition to the processes that RAA uses in hiring to promote equity and sustainable livelihoods. So we are working to publicize and enrich and deepen people's understanding of the reuse or circular economy, and to make them aware of all of the ways that they are already participating in it, and trying to get them psyched about participating in it more by knowing it better. And we have a website. We expect to have some great short movies by the end of summer. And we're just going great guns, and it's an enormous amount of work, but it is so rewarding.
That's great. Yeah, no, there's a lot of activity there. And I might, in this context, I'll mention just that there is a waste. A smaller organization in town is doing a zero waste challenge for the week of June 5th to the 12th. So it's a competition, it's a challenge. So go check out Live Zero Waste, Zero Waste Challenge from June 5th to 11th, coming right up. And then the other thing I want to mention is that there's going to be another organization that's organizing a trash talk tour, like was held May a year ago, but this one's going to be in September. So
no, it was in September a year ago too.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
It was so much fun. I want to be a host this time.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we'll have more information about that later. yeah, it's in September. So then the water quality group, we met once. What I've learned is that a lot of this is regionalized, as water, is almost as mobile as air. And so, Jen Lawson at the city staff, plus the Huron River Watershed Council, is an intergovernmental body that handles a lot of water issues locally. So they have a regular quarterly meeting, and what we're going to do is join this group as environmental commissioners from the city and participate more actively in that forum. I think. Plus, we're going to have another meeting in June that I haven't scheduled yet. So that's the only update I have about water quality. So let's move on to other commissions. Shannon?
Planning Commission, I think the biggest thing is that we've been really going over our what we now call our comprehensive plan. And we have to kind of approve that every year. And the big news on that is also kind of dovetails, I'm sure, with City Council, is that there's going to be a big revision that's coming up in the next fiscal year for that, which is a really long time coming. And that has all kinds of implications in terms of our environment too, in terms of zoning and how all those things fit together. It weaves together lots of different comprehensive plans that we have. It's very complicated, and we're hoping to be able to kind of put all of this into one document to make it much easier to follow. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that has really taken up our time that has any pertinence to Environmental Commission.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I would also just like to say, actually, because I from the beginning that I didn't get a chance to, is that I really appreciate you and Rita both continuing on as your roles to be able to do that for the Environmental Commission. So thank you both for stepping up and doing that again. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. Yep, I always appreciate constructive criticism. Also as well. So about the Energy Commission, Juno, Edie?
Yeah, last meeting, there was an overview and update on the city's energy concierge system and program, talked about the platform and funding needs and how that will continue to be built out. We also got an overview of the findings from the survey on the city's green rental housing program. I think the majority of the respondents were landlords or property owners or managers, then tenants, and then some that didn't really fit into either category. And so it's kind of some mixed findings there. And I think that is also going to, continue to be, there's going to be other opportunities for engagement and legal review and so forth with that. And then lastly, we had a quick overview of that latest segment of the IPCC report that will culminate this September. And that is focused on mitigation of climate change. And I guess some of the highlights from that, just the urgency of transitioning away from fossil fuels, the importance of social measures and demand side measures, including, kind of lifestyle changes were highlighted more than in previous reports, as were opportunities for synergies with other goals that we might have, including, how green infrastructure can fit into our climate mitigation efforts and have other benefits. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Edie. Yeah, I think it would be good to engage the Environmental Commission more about lifestyle changes and green infrastructure. So as elements of that. Okay. Parks Advisory, Ann's not here today, so let's move on to Council. Kathy?
Council passed the resolution for U of M net zero workforce housing at the May 16th meeting. Since then, I have talked to someone who is a county commissioner, and they would like the language to have the county commission consider it. this evening, I spoke to Garland Gilchrist, the lieutenant governor who was in town for another reason. And well, he wasn't in town to visit me. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I think it was some kind of educational event, but there was also a little meet and greet this evening. And I mentioned to him about the resolution, and he was very interested and started talking about the housing plans that the governor announced probably a week ago. And so I'm going to work with his staff. So I think that this was sort of something that I was working towards, but it definitely wasn't a done deal. But many of the pieces seem to be falling in place at this point. And I believe that given that this is consistent with the state plan, that we just need to develop the political support that we need through the student organizations and through the unions. A couple of unions have already signed on as well. And so I want to thank Looney. I know we talked a little bit about mobilizing the student groups. And so we need to have a good plan in place and then put pressure on the University of Michigan regions. But things look excellent at this point. So, and thanks to everyone who worked on this.
Yep, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, that's wonderful that so many of the governmental organizations are aligning
Yes.
them. Point. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kathy, did you want to mention anything? I mean, Lisa?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we passed a great budget.
Yeah. And congratulations. Thank you so much. I know that's a very contentious process every year. So deserve a vacation. So let's move on to chair. The chair has nothing more left to say for now. So report from staff.
Yes, the Office of Sustainability and Innovations will be kicking off A20 Week, starting on June 5th through June 11th. So we'll be kicking it off with the Dexter Ann Arbor Run, and just want everybody to come on out and just have a good time that week. So
Wonderful. And let's see. So the items for the next agenda, I have, the Gelman MS4 permit and the Ann Arbor for Public Power. We will have those folks back in our June 23rd meeting. Are there any other suggested items specifically at this point to attend to at the June 23rd meeting? I don't.
Steve, we should decide whether we were going to have, I'm sorry, I forgot the professor's name, Lisa, about the legal issues relating to trees.
Dick Norton. Yeah, Dick Norton. About, it's about, isn't it the relationship between trees and stormwater management?
I think it's more like removal of trees on private property.
You're right. Sorry. But actually, I think it's how the stormwater management tree case affects
Okay.
the ability to remove trees on private property. Right. Sorry, I should have reviewed my notes. I have no memory.
Me too.
Yeah, so that's it's sounding like it's a crowded agenda.
Yeah.
So maybe we would want to move that to later. I think he's totally flexible.
Uh-huh. Okay. And the other one is Chris and natural features. So we've got kind of a good lineup, and the question is just how to slot them.
How to manage it? Yeah. I think I'll try to. We'll try to get directly to the point as much as possible, because we get materials beforehand, and it's up to all the commissioners to review them, and they're available for members of the public for a few days in advance as well. So I think. I'd like to focus more on just, what's the ask here? We'll have a discussion and then come up with an action instead of, instead of relying on the time of these meetings, which is rather limited, to just go through informational reviews. It's just not as good a use of our time. Okay, so we'll try to manage that. Okay, I promise we won't go longer than 9:30, and hopefully we'll never go long. We'll get our business done by 9. So let's see. So the next scheduled meeting is June 23rd from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The next item on the agenda is public commentary. So this is the second opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes. Please call 1-888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 915-8343-9176. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments, and be patient. There can be a delay of up to 30 seconds before a connection is established. Well, Galen, is there anybody on the line as yet?
There's no one.
Okay. Let's wait another 30 seconds or so. Okay, is there anybody on the line yet, Galen?
No.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We've covered a lot of ground today, and so I declare this meeting adjourned at 9:18 p.m. Thanks. See you all in June.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.